For continuous air and water barriers on your next build, choose Zip System Ceiling Solutions. Seal tough jobs in a flash.
Hello, UnBuild It Podcast. Steve Basic here, Chris Bruton, Peter Yost, and today, I know before you might have heard me say that we're going to talk, and this could possibly be the best podcast, but I think this is just going to top them all. So, it's...
I like it when he sets the bar low.
Buckle up. How's that?
Okay,
Get
buckle
ready.
up. Buckle up.
What are we talking about today? We're going to talk...
Beanie Babies.
Concept.
Oh.
We're going to be very, very conceptual today. And we're going to talk about the difference between application and integration. These are two of my favorite words. Well, one of them is my favorite word. The other one I hold in like the deepest disdain for a word that I can. So,
Can we talk about favorite words real quick? Do you have a favorite word?
Yeah, shut
I
up.
do.
What is it?
It's a Hawaiian word for triggerfish.
Oh, this is a good one. Go right
Huna
ahead.
huna huna nuka
You
nuku
don't
apua.
even know how to say it.
He interrupted you.
You know what my favorite word is? Silence.
That was loud. I'm a big fan of tugboat. And
You do kind of
smock.
look like one.
Smock?
Yeah, they just both
It
are
looks
fun.
like a tugboat. Like if I was looking for a nickname for you, I'd call you Tugboat. Hey,
Thanks.
Tuggy.
Hey,
I think
Tuggy.
my other favorite word is
Wait.
channery.
Can we hear the triggerfish uninterrupted?
Huna huna nuka nuku apua.
Okay.
Triggerfish.
Do you know why they call it a triggerfish?
Why?
Because the dorsal fin won't go down unless you pull on the secondary dorsal fin, and then it will go down. Like it literally is
Triggers it.
locked in place where you can't push it down, and it has a little one behind it that if you pull on it, it goes. Meow.
Great.
Did you know that?
I was still working on the Beanie Baby thing.
Okay. Okay.
So today we're going to talk about Jake's personal Beanie Baby collection.
Sold out in the late 90s. Millionaire.
I didn't know how you were going to counter that, but that was pretty
It
cool.
was pretty good. I'll give you that one.
Suckers.
Now, so today, application versus integration. And it's pretty interesting because the world that I was born unto in the building industry is very deep rooted in this idea of integration and how things get designed into systems. But yet a large part of the building industry chooses to work in this concept of application, right? So what do I mean? I mean that you can design a house to integrate great energy efficiency, great comfort, health, durability, or you can design a house somewhat, let's say, I want to say normal, but more traditionally designed, and then sit there and say, oh, okay, well, how do we apply some energy efficient features to this? But the problem with that is that the concept of integration and application, not only then does it apply to the materials you're using, but then it applies to the way the budget gets drawn up, right? Because you're building a house and then you're applying these concepts. And likewise, you are building a budget and then you are adding these costs to it. So without integrating them, there's no way to really make them anything but in addition to
Add-ons.
the budget scheme.
Add-on line items.
Add-ons.
Oh, well, yeah, but if we're going to make this efficient, we're going to have an upgraded window package, and that'll cost us X. Instead of going, the right windows cost X.
The
From
right
beginning.
windows cost X, but like, you know, as Peter and I have talked about, if the windows are part of the HVAC system, then you can get a pretty decent reduction in the HVAC system. So
Should we call that like the comfort package? The envelope, the windows, and the HVAC? We should call that the comfort aspect?
I mean, you certainly can, and
I like
it's
that
all,
comfort
it's
line
all
item.
integrated. Well, you like anything you think of.
Like getting in early on Beanie Babies.
He just winked at me.
Just because you sold Beanie Babies and became a millionaire from anything you do anything now.
Yeah, I blew it all on Pogs later on, though.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so the comfort package. But the idea there is, when I talk to people about, say, one of the passive houses I've done, people say, "Oh, yeah, those windows are really expensive." Well, yeah, for that house, the window package was, I don't know, it was probably like $55K. And we did price out Anderson windows just to see, and the price, I don't know, came in at like $35K or $36K, something like that. But in doing the enhanced window package, we were able to significantly, and insulation and all these other integrated features, we were able to significantly decrease and go from a traditional ducted system to 2 mini splits in the house that take care of the house.
That
fully.
saved you way more than 20 grand, probably.
And that saved us, it saved us probably on the order of almost 30 grand. So when you put those line items together at the bottom of the spreadsheet, because you integrated the cost and had them working together instead of just simply adding it, then you got you got a better performing home for the same price, or arguably a little less. But it's that integrated feature. You get so many people, and I get calls all the time that say, "Hey, we have a house designed and our architect just doesn't know this. Can you help us out by doing some of this, this stuff that you do?" And it's like,
and you always go,
I pretty much say no for a number of reasons, but one of them is it's really hard to just come in now and apply these things, right? You need to know what is the wall thickness or whatever, because a lot of this is going to drive the size of the rooms or whatever.
Well, let's use the drywall as an air barrier. Well, your set of plans has 12 ceiling elevations.
Right.
What were we planning on doing with that?
Exactly. And those are the things that when you try to apply these features instead of sitting down and designing them, and there's a lot of times where you can design these features in to become some of the aesthetic features of the house. Like you can use
deep windows,
exterior insulation and deep windows to provide a certain level of aesthetics on the house. And, the integration is also, if I can get a material to do more than one thing, then obviously I'm saving some money by not having to buy something else to do that same thing, like a zip-R sheathing.
I wonder if this divergence of application versus integration, can we find it in other products, large, expensive product systems like automobiles? Do they, in the automobile industry, do they say, we just did this change, we're going to put in a bigger transmission now? They don't do that.
Or simple, like, we designed this car, it's cool. We should put 24-inch wheels on it, though.
Right.
They don't just, everything is designed to work together from the beginning the way it should be.
And is that just because the industry is more sophisticated, or is there something about that product that means you just can't do that? You won't survive in the industry? Because we just came from a development where side by side there were just dog-ass horrible homes right next to a really high-performance home, and probably the homeowner could look at those and say, they look pretty same to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to understand.
So does that feed the ability to...
the one-off nature of what we do encourages people that they can make a mistake once. But Ford's cranking out 35,000 trucks a month. They can't have something that's messed up on all 35,000 of them. So they have to take the QC on the front end a heck of a lot more serious than the people do in our industry for the most part.
And the warranty or the callback on that probably extends far beyond the 1 year.
Yeah, it's a 5-year warranty on a truck.
For 1 year.
Yeah, interesting.
Almost everything, even if it's crappy material, it's going to perform good for at least a year, for the most part.
Do you use this concept when you're working with clients to explain your process? Hey, I'm not sticking stuff on afterwards. I'm thinking about how all these fit together at the beginning.
I don't think I'm as blunt about it as that type of conversation, but there are times where we talk about like an integrated approach to, we're going to do this because that's going to trade off this and this and that. Be able to do this for that reason. And windows are a big one. People are like, oh wow, those windows, those are pretty expensive. Well, they are, but they're giving you the views. We're putting in probably more window than what we would normally put in because of this. And, your HVAC and your comfort is going to be way down, and health. You're not going to get condensation on the inside of these windows and all of those things.
So it's easy for you because you're the architect, or I would say it's easier than some of the other of us, because you're driving the carriage.
Well, most people are coming to me because I have that approach and they know it, so they're buying that approach.
But when you do plan review and consulting, how are you dragging builders and architects to the right way?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because sometimes I realize that I'm so late in the game that all I'm going to be doing is messing with something that's already messed up.
Or that's something that somebody's already fell in love with, be it the architect's in love with it, and now you're going to tell them to change it.
I had a project I was working on recently where, it's a very expensive home on the coast and good architect. And I looked at the roof plan and all the water is going to be shedding right over the front entryway of the house. And I said, are you going to use gutters? And he said, well, I was hoping we wouldn't be able to use gutters on the coast of the country. For aesthetic reasons. I said, well, look at the whole total load that's going to dump right by the front entrance. And there was just this long pause because we were so far down the design process that what are we going to do with that water? Well, we're going to have to deal with it through application. We're going to have to figure out how to deal with that load because we didn't
get an L-shaped bent piece of metal on the roof to divert shit away from the front door.
Well, or maybe convince them it's like in these movies where standing in front of a waterfall is something that you want to experience.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what
you want to come to my door when it's raining and I want to be at home by myself. You're going to walk through the waterfall to get here.
Superior drainage at the floor level, at the ground level.
And, this guy was a great architect. He was a really good architect. He was really trying to do the right thing, but it was a fundamental element of design that if I had been involved earlier, I would have just said, hey, one of the first things I do is I look at your roof plan because I want to know where that water's going, and are we going to manage it down at grade or are we going to manage it at the eave? And you would think that that's pretty basic. And again, I always say architects have a really tough job because they have to look at an awful lot of phenomenon.
There's a lot of opportunity to slip through the cracks.
There really is.
There's a ton of opportunity.
But I hadn't thought about it as the way Steve's done it with, you're applying stuff after the fact as opposed to integrating from the beginning.
Yeah, your thoughts should be born of integration and not come up with the idea of the plan or the design and then figure out how to solve these problems.
Yeah.
So I've said the phrase like it's not an applied science after the fact. And so the way that we resolve it is we try really hard to sell pre-construction services. It's great on many levels. I get to spend time with the clients after they've made an investment with us without signing a contract for us to build the house. I get to date the client. In other words, I also get to date the architect at that point. But I also get to be the one that sits there in the design meeting going, well, what about this? Before anybody's printed anything out, before anybody's fell in love with it, I can say, yeah, but if you do that, then we have to do this. I had a meeting this week with some clients and an architect, and the architect was aware of this already, and we had a conversation. And it wasn't energy efficiency. It was just buildability, where they put a wood stove in the center of a vaulted room, and the flue went straight up. So the flue was going to interrupt my ridge beam. And I'm like, we can do that. But you just added $3,000 to the framing of that roof assembly. Because now we're buying 2 huge supporting beams that then come over and land on top of a window on one side and an existing roof on the other side that now we have to reinforce. Instead of it just being, common rafters that are self-supporting, now we have something completely different going on. That kind of stuff is the same thing that we're talking about. It's just that we're phrasing it from an energy perspective most of the time.
So if you catch that early enough, you have the ability to integrate. And if you don't, then you have to do some sort of application to straighten it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the design wasn't designed to accept it, so now you have to force that acceptance.
Right.
And as builders, that's a hell of a lot more complicated and challenging and difficult and annoying then
Because we could have solved for it earlier a lot easier.
Well, the interesting part.
How do I keep the whole roof from feeding water to this front door?
But the interesting part of that is that, you have a set of plans, which essentially is a level of integration, right? But because you chose not to talk about the wood stove as part of those plans, you didn't complete the integration. Right, because that's what plans are for, so that we can pre-plan, integrate all of these systems. How does the wall meet the foundation? How does the wall meet the roof? How do all these things integrate? And that when you come up with something like that, it just means somebody stopped short in that thinking of integration. It's like, yeah, we can worry about that later. It's like HVAC is one of those.
Yeah.
Right, you can sit there and say, "Oh, we're going to put a Zender system in." Okay, yeah, well, we're going to run it. Oh, we'll figure that out when we get it framed up.
Yeah.
That's probably not the best time to talk about how to run 33-inch pipes through the house.
Yeah, or a unit that is half the size of a refrigerator. Right. Where are we going to put that?
Hanging it on the wall, and the two pipes have to be 10 feet apart from each other when they exit the structure.
So how often do you turn, Steve, to three-dimensional expression to sort of help with the early integration?
I mean, always. We, probably the second, third meeting, we're already starting to do a massing model. So it's not solving necessarily aesthetic problems, although the clients, we sell it to them as, hey, this is, our thoughts on the roof line and this and that and how things, the massing of the house. So part of it is selling that, but it gives me the initial run through of, oh, okay, look at this wall here. This is where we can run out the Zender. This is where we can do this. And these are some things we can do there.
How often do you use prior projects to drive home a point with a client or your builder? Because you have right now you have a huge library of projects.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one because it's saying, are you using prior projects or are you using experience? I would just make the argument that I'm using prior experience to make the argument for what it is that we want to do. But the interesting thing too is that the clients who seem to spend more money than the clients that don't seem to be more reliant on your decisions. Like the clients that
we had that conversation this week. Go ahead and I'll recant the conversation to Peter.
The more expensive projects, people say, yeah, whatever you think, Steve. But then the projects that are just
don't have an appropriate budget.
Like the homeowner wants, I want this, can I get this? And I'm doing one project and the client just constantly, so does this mean we're going to get the metal roof? And I'm like, the metal roof is out of the budget. Get it out of your head. We finally got to the point where I didn't scream at them, but it was like, you have to get it out of your head. It's not part of the project. It's not going to hit that unless your number changes. That's the only way the metal roof is coming in. And, but yeah, it seems like the harder ones to get through the project are the ones that the budget is more of there's a lot of friction in the budget.
So I was telling Steve this week that, a few years ago, I realized that a lot of our clients were engineers and doctors. And when I first realized that, I just went, well, they make a decent living and we provide a premium product that's more expensive than some other people in our market. And then I had a conversation with an engineer that was a client of ours, and I realized that the reason we had so many doctors and engineers as clients is because they enjoyed our approach to giving professional advice and being the professional. And they respected it because the majority of their life is giving professional advice and being the knowledgeable professional in the situation. Mm-hmm. And so that goes a long way to this applied versus integrated. If you're the professional and you can be involved from the beginning, from a builder standpoint, obviously the architect's going to be involved very early. That's the best way to insert yourself in this process in a way to ensure success. And I just wrote down, A headache on paper is always going to be a headache in real life. The headache in real life might not present itself on paper, but if it's presented in the plans, it's time to resolve it before we start getting into the three-dimensional world.
Bigger headache in real life than it would be on paper.
That might sneak by on paper and become a headache in real life, but if it's on paper and you can see it on paper, it's for sure going to be a pain in the ass in real life.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll admit there's times where I design something where we might not have the exact solution, but it's like, okay, here's a couple chases that we can use, and we'll figure out how we're going to use them.
Yeah, sometimes in 3 dimensions it's a little easier.
Or we can just grab that end of the closet and use it to run some pipes up there, and we lose 6 inches in that 8-foot closet. So it's not the end of the world. It's just, I guess part of it is having the wisdom to understand when something is an issue and when something isn't an issue that we can solve for it. But it's funny because working at Building Science Corporation, we used to do a lot of dealing with application, because people would come and say, oh, I have this house plan, or we have these, or working with production home builders, and then trying to do things like bring their mechanical systems into the house, right? And you remember I tell a story when we were out there with our good buddy Rich Coyle and the woman architect there, and we were talking about bringing the HVAC system into the conditioned space, and she said, we just don't have the room. And I'm like, we're doing 3,500 square foot houses here, and we're looking for literally like 9 square feet at the most, 8-9 square feet. And then, she was kind of huffing and puffing. I said, okay. I said, have you ever done a house without a kitchen sink? Have you ever done a house without a powder room? And she says, no, of course. I mean, a house has a kitchen sink and a house has a powder room. And I said, well, we just need to, apply the same priority level to the mechanical space that you do to the powder room and the kitchen sink. And then you'll always have one in the house.
Or give up your powder room. I can put an HVAC closet there.
HVAC closet's probably half the powder room, if that. And with Palo Duro, there was a gentleman, Mike, there that worked there. And he did all the design work, but he also did all the building commissioning, which I thought was just genius, because this guy set up every system, but then he was the one to check it and commission it. So he closed the loop, and he learned about trust and verify. This guy was a wealth of knowledge about. He'd walk into a house and say, "Yeah, I know what that problem is. Go over there in a half hour. Yeah, okay, you're all set," because he knew what the problem was. But we would lay out literally these closets that were, 30 inches deep by like 42 inches wide, and we'd get the heating system in there, the sealed combustion hot water heater, and like a Renew Air type ventilation system, all in this one closet, and fit it in there. Things would be up high, things would be down low, and you'd still have the right access to the panels, because we had, certain rules about how that room got integrated, that if the door was here, this was on the right, this was on the left kind of thing. And so you could walk into the design and then have this fully integrated closet that you could then integrate into the design, which it's like designing a car, right? I mean, the car is nothing more than a whole series of systems. You have the audio controller computer system that then sits in the dashboard, that then sits inside the car. So you have these different levels of integration that are working there, but they all have to be planned for.
I wonder where that comes from, to think that, we'll just stick the HVAC in afterwards because it's just a mechanical system. I mean, we do it with wiring to some extent, but I don't know where we ever got to the point that you could say, oh, I can't give up any space for that. I mean, that's nuts.
That's a design professional or a builder that isn't taking the fact that somebody's going to live in the house seriously.
Yeah, or their perspective is, I just need to get this damn thing through the year and we're good. Right. And I mean, a lot of architects don't even go back and look at the project during construction.
Or after it's done.
So when you talk about application versus integration, what level of integrated thought do you have if you never have gone to see the
project, that feedback loop,
and get that feedback and close it out? Like, did that location work? Did that,
or even the simplest? I built an addition one time, and the homeowner invited my team and the architect to come and look at the job as when we were done, like a thank you. She had hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that, which was incredibly sweet. And we got there, and the architect like pulled me aside, and he was like, "That door is supposed to align with that door." And I said, "Well, that's not the way it's on the plans." I almost said his name. He's retired now, but I still won't throw him under the bus. I said, "That's not what the plans say." And he said, "Oh, that most certainly is." And I said, "Well, I have a set of plans in my truck. You want to go look at them?" And we walked out there and we looked at him, and he said, "Well, you should have called me. It's supposed to be like that." And I said, "It should have been right on the plans, and you should have come and seen the project, because we invited you to come and see the project, and you were too busy. Had you come when I invited you, we would have cut 4 studs loose and moved it over, and it would have been exactly as you intended. However, you also could have resolved the issue by making the plans be correct, too."
Well, now, he certainly didn't enjoy his hors d'oeuvres.
No, he wasn't very polite to me after that either. He was pretty pissy. But he's retired now, so.
There you go. But anyways, it's, these 2 words have always somewhat bothered me. And part of it is I've had the fortunate experience to be on the side of integration and be taught that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That it's the only way that I really understand how to do things is to sit there and put it all together and figure it out.
And we've phrased most of this from a headache standpoint. Like, this is going to be a pain in the butt to do this right and at a cost-effective way if we have to apply it. But really, we're talking about success on multiple levels. Oh, yeah. All the way down to health and comfort. Like, you can put the same amount of insulation on your house as I have on my house, and I'm going to bet you cold hard cash that my house is more comfortable, because the insulation wasn't the only thing. Right. It's the windows, it's the air sealing, it's the water it's everything. So the opportunity for success when everything is this integrated approach, it just is that much higher, and that success goes to the homeowner as well, not just whether or not the builder can do it, whether or not somebody's pissed off during the project.
Yeah, and I guess, we're forced to apply, but it's not that, all architects have an integrated approach. They just stop short in a lot of places.
They don't bring all of the things that need to be integrated.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right? They don't think possibly about the HVAC or the ventilation system. They don't integrate and look at the cost of, if we do really better windows, does that have an impact on the HVAC system? Like your architect example, he never came out to the job site. So there wasn't this completeness to the integrated thought process, that it just stopped way short for him. And then it's funny, then he's got the nerve to kind of complain about something. Like, if you don't want to be part of the solution, then you don't have the right to even comment on it, right? In my opinion.
No hors d'oeuvres for him.
I will say that the couple times that Steve's come to projects with us and we're in framing and he starts to point something out, I'm just like, no, stop. I don't want to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it. Piss off. You can take that. It's not your house anymore. It's my house. I will defend anything that we've done, even when I know it's wrong. Like the framers adding in an extra 2x to the header because they thought they were supposed to match head heights, or, any number of bizarro things.
Going to think on their own.
Exactly.
It's like,
not reading the plans.
I can build it. Well,
not if you don't read the plans. Yeah. I gave you instructions, not inspirations.
Right.
So I'm thinking about Pete's resource. I don't have a resource on this. Steve, do you have a No,
but let's just throw it back to, I think, Building Science Corporation. Go read everything there, because their whole approach to building and thinking relies on a systematic approach, which inevitably requires an integrated approach.
I feel like Pete's Resources has just turned into an advertisement for Building Science.
Well, we knew that was going to be the default, but it's funny. I was going to say, you learn systems thinking and integration versus application from the day you walked through their door. And it was pretty early in your career. So yeah, and again, I learned to build from my brothers. I thought I knew what I was doing, went to the research center, learned that I didn't know what I was doing. Then again, when I went to Building Science Corporation, learned a third time.
You really knew.
I really knew how much I didn't know.
So is this you wore slip-on house shoes, you learned how to tie your shoes using Velcro, and then you learned how to tie your shoes sort of moment?
Well, now people make fun of me because I wear Crocs. They're just old people's shoes, but
They are. On that note, we're going to call...
No, because I have a huge pet peeve. Crocs should not be publicly worn as daytime shoes.
Do you own Crocs?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I
thank
don't
you
even
for
own a
backing
pair,
that up.
But I'm not bashing Crocs. I think they're fine. Like if you're at home and you want to take the dogs out in the backyard and throw a ball, slip your Crocs on and go. But I shouldn't see you at the airport prancing around in your Crocs.
Well, let's not get started on airport attire. Since when did
that's
people
true.
forget that they're adults? Dress like an adult. I don't need you to wear a tie, but sweatpants are not.
I hope it's okay with you that Crocs are a key part of my building investigation stuff, moving from the inside to the outside of the building.
Would you call them an integral part of...
Ooh. Steve's thinking, well,
He's probably got like,
there's a Croc.
You know, like he doesn't even have just Crocs. He probably has like ones with like little instrument, like the pins and stuff. Like he's got like a moisture meter, little mini moisture meter.
Okay, we're gonna go hardcore on this. How many pairs of Crocs do you own?
Oh, I just have one at a time.
Okay, well,
One pair.
plenty of time to back out of that habit.
And I don't buy ahead.
Don't buy ahead. On that note, we're going to say thanks for watching the podcast today. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Tell everybody else because we're putting up new content Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Check out the Before the Build series where almost every series talks about integration.
True.
That's how
True
it
dat.
works. Have a good day.